Great question. I'll show you a few options here. So let's create a quick campaign. And we'll just call this our webinar invite campaign. So webinar invite campaign. And it sounds like you have like some people who have attended a past webinar. So this would be the tag for those people. So past webinar registrants. And then you would choose a tag that, hopefully those people already have, or a tag that you can apply to that group. So registered for webinar. Let's just use that one. And then we'll put them into the invite sequence here. So this will be invite to next webinar. And in here, right, you can obviously schedule this for a specific time. Like if you don't want that invite to go out right away, you could say we want this invite to go out Friday, right, in the context time zone. And then let's just grab an email here and we'll say invite one because you might want to add more invites. And then I'm just going to build a real simple email here. So we'll say, hey, contact first name, join us at the next webinar. And then you'll say, like, if you thought the last one was good, or something like that. And then here's where you would put the upcoming webinar is gonna be better than ever. And since I know you loved the last one, whatever, right? Click below to join. There's two different ways I'm gonna show you here. So method number one is to give them 3 different options in the email itself. So you said you have 3 different, time zones. Click below to join to register for the webinar in your time zone, right? And then I'm going to switch to using, rather than text, you could do like link 1 and then link 2 and link 3, something like that. But I'm going to use buttons for this. So we'll say, time zone 1, and then we would set this to be some sort of confirmation URL. So I think, I'll just use, like I have a blog confirmation page. Like this is just the page that people see when they like click a button to register for my blog. So I'll just use that for the meantime. But the key here is when they click the link, we want to tag them. So webinar 1, right? And we'll just, put it in our, I don't know if I have a events category or I'll just put it in my test tags category for now. So test tags, webinar 1, done. Right? So if they click time zone 1, they're going to see that confirmation page. So that's where you would say like, congrats, you're registered for the webinar. Here's the details, add it to your calendar, that sort of thing. And then you would tag them. That's important. And then let's clone this and I'll move them side by side. And then this one would be time zone 2. You could show them a different page, or you could use, if it's a generic confirmation page, that's fine. But we would want to change the tag. So this time it would be webinar 2. And again, test tags is fine. So there we go, done. And then maybe a slightly different, color. So maybe your buttons are that way it's clear. Like, hey, these are different things. And then we'll just do a darker blue. So this would be time zone 3. And again, update the URL if you want, but definitely update the tag. So webinar 3, test tags create, done. So now we've got 3 different buttons for them to click. And they can register for the webinar of their choice. So thanks. See you on the live webinar. Love, Greg, right? And that's all you need in this email. 3 different choices for them. You could add whatever copy and bullet points you want. And then you could also duplicate this and have a second or a third reminder for this, right? So this would be, if that went out Friday, maybe on Monday we follow up with them. I think this is going to be slightly at an angle, which always drives me nuts. This would be invite 2. You could modify the copy here, and you could create, additional follow-ups 3 and 4 times, however many times you wanted to email them. And then once the sequence is set as ready, we would basically have 3 different goals. So this would be registered for webinar 1. And this is listening for that webinar 1 tag, right? And then similarly, we would have registered for webinar 2. So based on their time zone, and this would be the second, webinar 2, and then the same thing for webinar 3. So that way when they click any of those 3 links, they'll wind up with one of these 3 tags registered for webinar 3. There you have it. And then you can, like, what you do next is up to you. It probably depends on like your webinar platform, like what you're using. So you might need to, like, if it's if you're using Zoom, you might need to send like the information over to Zoom to actually register for them, because all this has done is tag them. If you're using Demio, Demio gives you like a one-click registration link. So how they actually get like their confirmation for the webinar is going to depend on what webinar software you're using. But what this does is it gives us your registrant list. So webinar 1 registrant list. And in here, you could tag them again. Well, I guess you don't need to do that. You could add a note with like, hey, they registered, so you have a historical timestamp. But you could use an HTTP post to connect them to that webinar system. Like I said, lots of options here. You could also, this is a pro move that I really like, and it's only available in Max Classic. So if you're on Pro, maybe it's available in Max as well, but it varies based on version. But the fulfillment list could send you a list of the registrants like on the morning of the webinar, right? So I don't know if you would need that, but sometimes that's good if you're like collecting questions from them, right? So that's one option here. Is like what happens in there is up to you. So that would be giving them, and then obviously you would duplicate that for the other outcomes as well. Okay, so that's the option with the email with 3 links. The drawback or the risk for going that route is nothing would stop somebody from clicking all 3 links. Like conceivably they could click more than one and register for all 3. And if that's fine, then this would work. But if that's a concern for you, if you're like, hey, I'm worried about that, then here's what I would do instead. You could use just a simple web form here as your registration selector. So select your session, and then this web form, normally web forms are designed to be like embedded on your website, but we would just use it to collect their info to allow them to choose which session they want. And because we already know who they are, we don't need to ask them to fill in their email address. So we can hide that and use a hidden field, and we'll select email from this list. So what that does is it makes sure that when they click the link, there's a little setting here, auto-populate this form with the contact's information when they're visited from a Keap delivered email. So their email address will come from the email with them when they click, and it'll fill in this hidden field. So all we need to do on this page is just say like, select your session or your preferred session. And then I would use probably a radio option here for the 3 options. So this would be time zone 1, this would be time zone 2, and then we'll add a time zone 3. And then you can make it required so that they have to choose one. And then this is the key for this one, is we would want to make sure that for each option, the tag is being applied. So this would be webinar 1, this would be webinar 2, and then this would be webinar 3. Done. Save. Yeah. So, and then, I would update this to say what it is. So, here are the different webinar choices, right? Save. And then they could choose one of those. You could format this and, add some spacing, change the size of those options so that it looks better, add your logo if you wanted, but like largely that's it. And then this would be like register me, so that once they sign up, it's tagging them based on their selection. So the benefit to going with a web form is that they could only choose one, right? Rather than allowing them to click all 3 buttons, this would restrict their choices. It would also give you the opportunity to add another field with like, see if I have anything we can use. I'm thinking like a comments or questions field. So I don't see a field like that. So you could create one, create a custom field. There we go. And we'll say webinar questions. And this would be a text area field. The reason I like that is because it allows them to just type in more information. And this could be optional, but like there, it just creates a box for them, right? So there's a lot of options, but the web form offers that advantage. And then you would want to, on the thank you page, show them like a normal sized logo instead of a massive one, but show them just some sort of confirmation message and like give them next steps as the webinar approaches, like here's what you should be doing. And then here's the last thing we will do is grab this hosted version link. So this will take them to that so that we can link to it in the previous email. So because we switched from using the buttons to driving them to a form, we would just get rid of these. We would only need one button. And then this would be going to this web form URL instead of to that confirmation page. And then we wouldn't want to tag them when they click on this one. We don't want to tag them until they actually make their selection. So this would be choose your session here, something like that. So that gives them, hey, choose your session right here. That lets us send people from those emails to this selector where they pick one of the 3 time zones. And then, how you handle that after they've made their selection is up to you. So option 1, option 2, and option 3. And I'll just show you here that in the decision diamond that shows up after the form, you have some choices for where and how you route them. So you could use the tags, but because this is right after the form, you also could use the form submission option. Time zone 1 is selected. That's going to go to sequence option 1. And then we would do the same thing for the next one. So I'm just going to port the rules down here to save me the time. And then time zone 2 is selected. And then same thing here, import the rule from option 1. And then just make the adjustment to the specific option that we wanted to select. I feel like this video has been way too long, but I know that somebody's going to watch it and say it was way too fast, and so they'll need to go back over it. But yeah, hopefully this gives you some ideas. The point that I'm making is that you have some different options here for drawing those people in. And inviting them and allowing them to make their selection, and then what happens next depends on where your webinar is hosted. So Diana, I hope this was valuable, and anyone else who finds this video and ends up watching it, hopefully it creates some light bulb moments for you guys as well.